We're here at the Strength Co. I'm with fellow starting strength coach and Art of Jiu Jitsu brown belt instructor, Renaissance man, Jeff Hairston. And we're going to talk about Jiu Jitsu. Jeff, why don't you tell us about your training, how long you've been here, and what you've been up to?
Well, I started Jiu Jitsu about 8 years ago when I was 28. I was watching a surf video. I saw one of those guys doing Jiu Jitsu. I was like, oh, I could try this. And then I moved to Costa Mesa to surf more, and AOJ opened. I was like really scared, but I tried it, got really into it. And to fast forward a bunch of time, I ended up hurting my back really bad.
Doing jiu-jitsu or something else?
I'm not sure if it was jiu-jitsu related or like a lifetime of like lifting incorrectly, playing football through high school, and then like combination of jiu-jitsu, lifting, and all this stuff, doing things incorrectly, right. Probably. And I ended up having a disc extrusion on my L5-S1, so like the disc had broken and it was like squirting out. And so I had an L5-S1 discectomy. And at this point I was like, I think by the time I had the surgery, I got down to like 155 pounds.
What were you before the surgery?
Probably like mid 160s. I used to compete at lightweight, so I competed at like 168 with the gi on.
Okay.
So I would walk around like 163 pounds.
Heavy?
Gi's like around 5 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would compete at lightweight 163. By the time I got out of surgery, I was 155. And I'm 6 foot, like
Right.
6'1" on a good day.
Yeah, you might be taller than me.
I might be.
Well,
I
you
might
wear
be.
Vans all the time.
That's true, so I'm a little lower to the ground. But, and then after that, after the back surgery, I was kind of scared of everything. I was scared to do yoga. I was scared to go get adjusted at the chiropractor. My weight came back up a little bit naturally just because I was eating more and feeling a little better. But then I started to get intrigued with like bigger man jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So I was watching like some of the big guys like Bernardo Faria, Buchecha, Hodger Gracie, and I was like, well, if I want to do this style of jiu-jitsu because it was more appealing to me, I thought, well, I should just be a bigger person.
So there's like lightweight jiu-jitsu is a different game.
Yeah, it's like a little bit different of a game, like more scrambly, more like inverted positions. And also I was like scared of going inverted anymore because I'd hurt my back.
Okay.
And so I wanted to play a little more like old school style.
But you're coaching at this time, right?
I was all
Jiu-jitsu.
coaching this whole time, like, so I was coaching kids already.
Okay.
And yeah, I was coaching the little kids, 3 to 5 years old at AOJ. And so then I was like, well, I had lifted barbells with my dad in high school. And I actually had a squat rack in my room, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's great.
Then we would do like hang cleans and like bench, and then I would squat, but it was like high bar. Probably wasn't very deep, but
Right.
it was probably better than like a lot of people were doing at the time. This was like the late 90s.
At least you were squatting.
At least I was squatting.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I would kind of like to go back to that. It was really simple, get the most bang for my buck. So I did like a Google search. I found starting strength. I go to the big
What
box
did you
gym.
search?
I was just like simple barbell program or whatever. And I think I saw like strong lifts,
Right.
5x5.
Right.
And I went in and put like 95 pounds on the bar. I did 5 sets of 5. It smashed me.
Okay.
So
And wait, so you had your back surgery what year?
I had it 4 years ago, so 2015.
So 2015. So you start coaching jiu-jitsu and doing jiu-jitsu 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Talking 2011, 15. The back gets hurt. You're coaching. You're around 165. And
Yeah.
you start barbell training on your own.
Yeah, at the fall of, so I waited like a year and a half, 18 months.
Okay.
Probably after having
Post-surgery.
surgery.
Got it.
And then around like the fall of 2017 is when I started.
Okay.
Right?
First on your own.
First on my own. So like, and this is the way I do everything, is like, so then I tried the 5x5, I got crushed. And I was like, oh, well, they have this starting strength thing. It's only 3 sets of 5.
It's less.
It's
It
less.
must be easy.
I was like, this must be easier. Sick. So I kind of figured out as much as I could, and then I'm pretty obsessive, so I bought the blue book. I start reading the blue book. I'm like trying to do it on my own. And then at this time I had already begun coaching the basics class, adult basics at AOJ. And one of my students there, he knew about the Strength Co.
Okay.
And he's like, he saw I had the book and he's like, hey, I know a gym where they coach that. You should go over there. It's in Costa Mesa. So I did my intro class on December 1st, 2017.
Okay.
And then the next day I flew to Hawaii with Ruka to go train. And I got to train with all these big guys. And so it was kind of like this.
Training jiu-jitsu.
Training jiu-jitsu.
Okay, got it.
So I came in here, I did my intro session, I loved it. I realized
And how much did you weigh?
like 165 maybe.
Okay. And when you say you go with those big guys,
They're like 200 plus,
Okay, 40
even
pounds,
heavier,
got it.
like, you know, Buchecha's probably 230, 240, or
Okay.
even heavier. And like
Right.
these other guys I was getting to see and train with over there. And so it was kind of this combination of I came in and did my intro class, and then I went to Hawaii, got to see all these big guys, and I got like really inspired. I was like, okay, I want to be big and strong because I want to do this style of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And so I think I like told you, I was like, I'm in, I want to sign up.
Yep.
And so
then your progression, like I remember,
Right.
came in, never missed a workout, 3 times a week.
Right.
I know what happened in here.
Yeah.
Put weight on the bar every time. Weight gain going up, 170, 180, 185.
Yeah.
200, it kind of started to slow down.
Right.
And then your lifts progressed pretty normal. What were you doing jiu-jitsu? Because we saw you in here 3 times a week. What were you doing jiu-jitsu wise? I know you're coaching 5 days a week,
Yeah.
which has some physical aspect to
Right.
it. But then how much are you rolling during that?
So I'm usually training now about 3 days a week.
Okay.
So
But during LP,
during
so for the
LP,
guy that's starting strength, like you
right.
did.
I was training more. I was training like 5 days a week at that
Okay.
time, which was probably looking back on it too much.
Right.
And also a lot of the times I was doing jiu-jitsu in the morning and then lifting in the evening.
Okay.
And looking back on it, or as we're going to recommend later, I would rather have someone lift in the morning and then train jiu-jitsu after that.
Right.
But so yeah, looking at me now, I'm like 200, 205, depends
Right.
on like how much I'm eating. And I'm pretty happy with my lifts. Especially doing a second sport, you kind of realize that progress on the bar is going to be a little bit slower, and that's okay.
There's some sacrifice.
Yeah, and also recognizing that I'll probably stay within intermediate programming as long as I'm still doing jiu-jitsu as well.
Right.
And
So then who you're competing with becomes a whole new thing.
right, so like, if
And
you're,
so, but those guys it's not like all of you went from 160 to 200. You went to 200.
yes, yes.
Okay,
So the reactions were like, as my weight went up and my strength went up, the reaction from the guys I train with every day, I started to get feedback right away.
Okay.
So maybe like the first month or 6 weeks, I didn't get a ton of feedback, but then like I gained 10, 15 pounds, and they start saying like, man, the pressure is so much worse, or you're so much stronger now. And then like as I kept gaining and getting stronger and stronger and stronger, I get that feedback more and more from people that I was training with, that it was obviously making a huge difference.
And then are you like leaving like, so you fight 165.
Right.
And I don't know, recreationally while you're in there.
Right.
And then you walk in one day and now you're 180 pounds. Are you still fighting them? And they're like, screw this, going on the scale? Or do you?
Right, so it kind of
I
like,
don't know how it works.
when you're rolling in class, you can roll with anybody, any size, but for the most part, you're gonna kind of stick around your weight class just because like, you don't want to be the guy smashing up a small guy and they don't really particularly want to roll with you too much. So then I started rolling with guys who were, more in my weight class, like 200 or heavier, or maybe like 190s. And not only like was I feeling better and stronger, I felt like more techniques became available to me. I was able to play the type of jiu-jitsu that I wanted to play, which was more of like I really like changed the whole way I played jiu-jitsu to more of like a pressure style on top, over under passing. On bottom now I play like what's called single leg half guard, and I play like even deep half now sometimes, which are like positions I would have never played before or felt comfortable playing before. But now, because I feel strong enough.
Never felt comfortable because you weren't big enough, or because fear of your former surgery?
Probably both,
Okay.
right? I felt like I wasn't strong enough, and then also, even after I had the surgery and I felt better, I was still always like in the back of my mind, like, I'm gonna hurt this again.
Right.
And now I never think about my back.
Okay.
It's never even an issue at all. And that's simply because of squats and deadlifts.
And you still train hard 3 times a week
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
Over 400-pound deadlifter.
right.
In the last 2 years, how many times have you tweaked your back? I mean, you're an active guy. You're doing
Right.
jiu-jitsu, you're lifting.
Yeah.
How many times? Because it happens.
Yeah,
Has it
I have
happened?
not
You
tweaked
haven't?
my back.
Okay.
No.
So nothing's kind of interrupted your training.
No, and that's a great point, because I think with this style of training, this type of barbell training, is that I feel really durable.
Right.
I feel much safer. I don't feel as banged up as I used to. When I weighed 160 pounds, I felt banged up all the time, tweaking my knees all the time, and feeling like joint issues all the time. But now, because I'm stronger, I rarely feel joint pain or feel banged up, or that I tweaked my shoulder too much or tweaked my knee too much. And I just attribute that to like my joints being tighter because I'm stronger. Right? My ligaments are stronger, my joints are tighter, my muscles are stronger. So I'm training the whole body, so I'm protected much more from all that type of stuff.
So In here, I mean, so in jiu-jitsu, what's I know there's a big thing for kids at AOJ specifically,
Yeah.
but what's like the primary demographic of people that you're coaching? I know you do beginners, but
Yeah.
in terms of, like, we see a certain type of person that generally wants to get stronger.
Yeah.
It's generally people that are starting to age, starting to have issues, whatever. Who do you see in jiu-jitsu, and then, like, how does strength play into that, or what do you tell them?
Yeah, I think like we see, if you look on Instagram, you're going to see the tier 1 level athletes, right? The professional black belts, and then also at AOJ especially, we have a lot of young up and coming stars that'll eventually be black belt world champions, right? But still, even at an academy where we have a lot of high level athletes, the majority of our members are men from 30 to 50 years old.
Right.
I started jiu-jitsu when I was 28. I'm 36 now. I'm a brown belt. From what I know, that's the average age for a brown belt.
Okay.
I'll probably, who knows,
So
whatever
maybe
happens.
most people start late 20s.
Most
or
people start
something,
late
right?
20s, early 30s. I think about it this way, like they probably played a sport in high school,
Right.
messed around during college, they have a job, they always wanted to
Surf for
try
a
something,
while.
surf for a while, right? And then they want to do something and they try jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And that demographic is also probably training 3 days a week, because that's what they can, time-wise, they can afford,
Right.
with like work or a family or a spouse, whatever it is. And
So you get someone, they're training 3 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
they're in that demographic, maybe they have back pain, maybe they're just really skinny, maybe they just want their game better, and you're telling them like, hey, you need to get stronger.
yeah,
And exactly what you said, they're like, hey, time-wise, I got a wife, I got kids, I got 7 days in a week, what do you tell them don't roll for a while because there's practice,
Right.
there's training for jiu-jitsu, there's training, how
Right.
do you
well,
sequence that?
what I tend to see is it's actually, like the people that ask me that are actually the people that are already doing too much.
Okay.
So, I have white belts I see, they come in and train 3 classes in a row. And from the outside, that looks like a really good thing, and it is. It's a lot of like,
In the same day.
in the same day, they'll, I
And
have,
a class is 2 hours?
a class is like, a basics class is an hour,
An hour.
a fundamentals class is 90 minutes.
Okay, got it.
But there's only so much information you can ingest at a
Right.
time, right? And so I begin to ask myself, like, maybe if they got in one high quality jiu-jitsu session and then added in a high quality strength session, are they then going to be able to get more out of the subsequent sessions of both the next time?
Right, okay.
And so that's kind of the way I think of it. Because usually the people who approach me about getting stronger are people that are overtrained.
Right.
They're doing too many things. They're doing Muay Thai also. And they're doing jiu-jitsu. And then they're like,
Right.
they go to spin, or they go on a hike, and then they also are like, oh, I want to get strong too.
Right.
And it's hard to say this, and people don't want to hear this, but sometimes doing less is actually going to get you more.
Especially in this.
Right.
Yeah. So you tell them train less, and then, I mean, if they've never trained barbells, they need to come in and do it 3 days a week.
Right.
So how does it, if a guy's going to lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Right.
and he's, I don't know, white through blue belt,
Yeah.
relatively new, when do you tell him to do jiu-jitsu?
So ideally, if I could pick their training schedule, I'd have them maybe come in here to the strength co. They're going to have to do an intro to barbells class, of course. They
Right.
get to learn all the lifts. And then after that, once they start their training, they're going to squat, they're going to press, they're going to bench press, they're going to deadlift. They're going to train 3 days a week. The session takes, in the beginning, maybe around an hour.
Yeah.
Eventually, it'll take 90 minutes. And I would tell them, I'd want them to lift prior to doing jiu-jitsu.
But the same day?
I would, if I had it my way, I would
Okay.
have them do it the same
So a
day.
guy's lifting in the morning, BJJ in the evening,
Yeah.
and then the following day, is he off?
He's off. He's going to
off.
rest.
Okay, yeah.
And the way I see
So
it
same
is,
thing we program kind of other stuff.
Right.
Actually recover.
because I'd really like the 48 hours of recovery.
Right.
Now, let's say that doesn't work. My second choice would be to have them alternate days.
Right,
So you'd lift on Monday, you train jits.
right,
Tuesday, ideally, it would be at the same time.
right.
So maybe you come in for a 9 a.m. session to lift on Monday. Tuesday, you go to 9 a.m., you train jiu-jitsu. Then on Wednesday, you come in. But the issue there is going to be recovery, right?
Right.
And then the issue with recovery is if it's not good enough, then we're going to struggle with adaptation.
So how much demand in jits? So here, right, a new person comes in, they're eating, a consistent diet, they're
Right.
lifting, and we see it as coaches, the weight's going up and up and up on the bar. They come in one morning to lift, they go to deadlift, it's glued.
Right.
And I mean, the first thing we ask them is, the recovery questions, and, oh, well, yesterday I was super busy, I ate one meal, whatever it is. What is that with jiu-jitsu? I mean, how intensive is jiu-jitsu in terms of like caloric requirements if they're lifting, starting strength here 3 days a week and they're training?
Yeah.
Is it even greater?
It's going to be even greater for
Okay.
sure. And also I would want to say in addition to that is they're not going to need another like an added cardio aspect to their training,
Right.
or something else for like metabolic adaptation, right? They want to adapt to roll better, right? To do jiu-jitsu better.
Right.
So in my opinion, they can just do jiu-jitsu because that's going to give them the metabolic adaptation that they
Right.
want, right? You want to get better at rolling, or you want to have better gas tank for rolling, roll.
Right.
And then you want to get stronger, we're going to lift. And I think that kind of leads us into the difference between like the training that we do here and what you see really often, especially in combat sports with the
Right.
style of training you see. And why people have training and practice confused, and
I mean, what is the common thing for combat
right. So
sports?
it's like functional training,
right.
right?
Running
And then
around, sandbags,
Right.
pushing things,
you're
same
kind
stuff
of
we see in the Marine Corps all
combining
the
strength
time.
movements, odd object movements,
Right.
metabolic stuff, cardio. And it's this idea that if we can emulate the movements that are done in the sport
Right.
or in the performance, that's going to get us the adaptation that we want. And really that's like there's like a fundamental confusion there, right? So if like we take a basic jiu-jitsu movement, the hip escape, you learn it the first day, right? And there's literally a thing called kettle jitsu, where they have you hold a kettlebell and you do basic jiu-jitsu movements, right? Okay. Yeah, it's a real thing. Like this guy sells a DVD. So here's the problem with that like concept, is that a hip escape is a very precise thing, right? It requires coordination. It requires precision, right? And you're getting used to moving under your own weight or with someone else on top of you when you hip escape. Now, if I add a kettlebell into that equation, you're learning how to hip escape slowly. It's going to affect the movement so that it's less accurate, there's less precision. So you're basically learning how to do it incorrectly. In addition to that, is a 10-pound kettlebell going to make you stronger? Is it going to cause enough of an adaptation that's really going to make a difference there?
Anything.
It's not going to.
Right.
So really, if you take a jiu-jitsu movement, like a technical stand-up, and you do it with a sandbag on your shoulder, or you take a hip escape and you add a kettlebell, you're really just creating dysfunction.
Right.
Teaching them either how to do a movement slowly or how to do a movement incorrectly.
Right. Instead of actually making the body stronger and then taking the technique that is already there and applying more force to it. 'Cause
Exactly.
essentially is what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what did I assume you have coaches in jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
What do they see as you're gaining this weight in terms of like technique? You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Because obviously you change weight classes and you change style.
Right.
Now you've been at 200 for over a year.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they seeing? I mean, are they like, whoa, like it's a completely different person, or?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm really fortunate, is like with, so my coaches are Guy and Hoffa Mendes. Guy's a 4-time black belt world champion.
They're the
Hoffa
best.
Mendes, 6-time black belt world champion. Also, Hoffa's 2-time ADCC champion. Like, they're the best.
Right.
Super knowledgeable. And what I really appreciate and respect about them is even though I don't play the same game as them, they've always been super supportive. And so I'll go to them and ask them questions, and they'll kind of tell me if I'm on the right path. And as I've gained this strength and as I've gotten heavier, and I have these ideas about, I want to start adjusting my game to play this way, they've always been really supportive. And they're like, they'll even say like, oh, I don't really choose that because I'm not that strong, or I don't prefer that technique, I like this better. But if you're feeling that this works, it's correct, go ahead.
Right.
And if you have the size and the strength to apply those techniques, they're supportive of that stuff. So it's really nice, even though they play a different style of jiu-jitsu. I mean, they understand everything. They understand every aspect of the game. So they're able to look at what anybody is doing and like give them critiques or encourage them or make corrections if needed. And so it's been a really cool thing to add in, like, because I think of strength as a skill. That's the way I think of it, right? And I'm adding another skill or pouring another skill into my jiu-jitsu. And as I've gone to them and said, oh, I'm starting to play like this or starting to play like this, and they've been really supportive. And, have given me feedback of like that I'm looking bigger, looking stronger, all that type of stuff, and able to just control my partners I roll with better, apply better pressure, stuff like that. So
So as you talk about practice of jiu-jitsu, strength as a skill, right?
Right.
But we want to be careful with the words
Right,
so
right.
people understand. So you have training and exercise. We separate exercise benefits for today, burning calories. How much should I eat? How much should I expend today? Training, I'm applying a stress today so that I can then recover tomorrow, my off day, and then adapt to do more. So in strength training, I mean, if the goal is to get stronger, it's a very systematic thing.
Right.
I apply a stress systematically, my whole body with barbells on day one. I rest, depending how new I am at this, a day or 2 days, and then I'm applying a greater stress 2 days later. In jiu-jitsu.
Right. So in jiu-jitsu, I would say like we call it training.
Right.
But really, like what we're doing is practicing a skill.
Right.
We're being introduced to new techniques. We practice those techniques via like drilling, and that's just practicing a sequence with a cooperative partner.
Okay.
And then we do like what we call rolling, which is just sparring,
Okay.
right? Where we try to apply the techniques against an unwilling partner who's
Right.
also trying to apply techniques
And is
to
that
us.
in like a timed, like 5
Yeah,
minutes,
so they'll
or
like,
something
it depends on
faster?
competition. They'll have various times or rule sets, but
Okay.
at the school you could do like 5-minute rounds or 3-minute rounds,
Okay,
whatever
got
the
it.
coach decides.
Gotcha.
And you're gonna roll and try to apply those techniques and do them to your partner who's fighting against you. And then you can go back to the drawing board, so to say, and like find another technique to fix how they blocked you, or ask your buddy how they defeat that technique when you get stuck.
Right.
And that's why I think people get really addicted to it, because it's like never ending. There's always problem solving. It's kind of like playing chess.
Right.
But what I really like about separating the two is like when I did functional training before, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun. It was always something different every time I went in. But then after I started doing barbell training here at the Strength Co., having my book, having the ability to look and track my numbers and see how I got stronger over this amount of months, how my numbers went up. Also seeing when I struggled, when I failed, and seeing if, did I not eat enough? Was I not sleeping enough? Was I stressed? Was there an issue at work or whatever it was that was leading into that?
Right.
I really like having that data to be able to apply like, oh, my deadlift is up to this now. I can definitely see that when I'm training and rolling and feeling how that is.
Right.
But we don't want to murky those two things, as we kind of talked about. I want to get strong here in the gym on the platform, lifting, and then I want to keep my techniques as precise as possible. Right? And I do that through practice. And we don't want to muddy those two things. We go to class at whatever your jiu-jitsu school is. I go to AOJ. I go to my class, my teacher teaches the techniques, we drill them, I practice them, and then I roll, and I try to implement my game when I'm rolling with other people. And then separate from that, I get strong.
Right.
And then we have criteria for the lifts that we use to get strong, right? Because we're not just choosing lifts willy-nilly, right? We want to choose, essentially, I always say we want to get the most bang for our buck, right? If I'm going to be in the gym, if I'm going to do something secondary and I'm busy because I'm already doing another sport, I got a job. If I want to get the most out of this, like we should have some criteria for that, right? And so the reason we squat and overhead press and bench and deadlift is because we want to use the most muscle mass over the longest effective range of motion with the most weight on the bar as possible, right?
And it couldn't apply any better than jiu-jitsu because you are literally applying force against another human being using your whole body.
That's right.
Everything is in play.
Right.
So, I mean, isolation almost seems dumb to me to use for jiu-jitsu. It's not an isolation sport.
Right, and we talk a lot about here of like the kinetic chain.
Right.
We talk about that a lot in starting strength. And if you think about it in the lifts we choose, a lot of them are done standing. I mean, all of them are done standing besides the bench press.
Right.
So we're using the longest kinetic chain we possibly can. And then if you look at jiu-jitsu, we're using our whole body all the time. Right. So rarely am I just using my upper body or my lower body or whatever. It's pretty much always in concert. And so I really feel like the long kinetic chain of the lifts we use in here, plus the very regimented method of going up a little bit in weight, having a designated rest time so that we can adapt, so we can recover and then adapt and be able to do more the next time, is super beneficial for jiu-jitsu, especially for your male 30 to 50 years old who wants to stay competitive in the gym, right? I mean, that's another thing is like, how does the 30 to 50-year-old guy who does jiu-jitsu 3 days a week still go to class and have fun and be effective and able to move effectively and do well against an opponent, right? He's probably not going to have the athleticism or speed of an 18-year-old, He's probably not going to have the gas tank of an 18-year-old, although he can have a really good gas tank, and maybe he is athletic, so he has retained some of that.
Right.
But my opinion is that the way an older jiu-jitsu player is effective against a younger player is by, one, getting as strong as you possibly can, and then learning how to slow the game down. So we slow the game down by putting them in positions where the younger player can't move as much,
Right.
and where we can apply as much pressure as
And I see
possible.
him wasting his energy.
Exactly,
usefulness.
right? I tie him up, I slow him down, I apply pressure, I cook him.
Right.
And the best way that I think to cook a younger player and be able to have fun and be effective in the gym and be the old guy
Right.
that gives the young kids headaches is by getting as strong as we can here on the platform, squatting, bench pressing, deadlifting.
Right. Big barbell exercise. So last thing.
Yeah.
No one walks in, to my knowledge, a jiu-jitsu place and thinks, I'm going to do this by myself with no instruction.
That's right.
Right? Like, no one does that. But
Yeah.
in the like gyms, people do that all the time. You're someone who's valued a coach your whole life. You can
Yeah.
just tell. But, I mean, what is your thought to the guy that's watching is like, I do jiu-jitsu, I have my coach there, squats, benches, press, deadlifts make sense. But we know, like, going and doing it on your own, it's just not the same.
Right,
It's
and I
not
tried,
the
and
same thing.
I tried it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you
I would
did
say
it.
like I tried it. I did it. I did. We call it novice linear progression.
Right.
I did it for 2 months on my own, and like, I'm a pretty smart guy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I was watching all the videos. I was listening to podcasts.
Right.
I was reading the book. I was trying as much as I could to do the movements correctly.
Right.
Right. And my body, I can move it pretty well. Right.
But there's
I
just
played
so
sports my
many
whole life.
things. It's got to be the same jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
So many things that are getting fixed
Exactly.
that the person doesn't even know are getting
Right.
fixed.
I mean, literally within 2 minutes of my intro lesson here, I was like, oh,
This is different.
this is different.
Yeah.
This is completely different. And I think I see there's such a similarity in jiu-jitsu because how often I go, change the grip like this.
Right.
Right? And we do the same thing in here.
Right.
I make an adjustment on the way they grip the bar in the squat or the press, or we make a small adjustment of toe angle.
Right.
Right? And that can make all the difference that
depending
someone's
on the
been missing.
person. Yeah,
You know?
got it.
That's why nothing compares in either of those sports to in-person coaching and
Right.
training with
In
other
real
people.
time. Yeah.
Right? In real time.
And with other people.
That's
Watching
right.
people, watching them get coached.
Exactly.
You learn a lot in jiu-jitsu watching two other people roll.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the exact same thing. I think that there's huge value of in between my sets, I'm sitting on the bench and I get to watch my buddy squat.
Right.
And I'm watching him squat and I'm watching the coach coach him and I'm looking and I'm learning the model.
Right.
And it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. If I take a round off, I just had a hard round of sparring, I'm gonna sit this one out.
Right.
I get to watch my buddies roll now for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing, and that's how I can learn. And then taking that information, watching other people do the movements, getting input from my coach, getting input from myself and how I feel.
Right.
And it's very clear to me that these things need to be coached, right? And man, we would all love to be able to go and squat perfectly on our own.
Right.
But form creep is a real thing.
Right.
Right? And so we all need to be coached, you included, you get
of
coached
course,
too.
yeah.
And I think sometimes people forget that.
Yeah.
They think like, oh, once you get, I mean, I'm sure like Rip doesn't get coached or whatever. I'm sure everybody in starting strength gets coached and gets yelled at.
Right.
It's just the way it
It's
is.
just part of it. You need it.
Because we want to keep our,
Well, because
keep
you're
our-
always trying to progress, and
Right.
then people were talking about that, 40, 50-year-old guys, they're not getting younger as time goes
No.
on, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening. Yeah, no, it's good.
so for you guys, 30 to 50 years old, you train jiu-jitsu, let's say 3 days a week, and you
Yep.
want to get started lifting, okay? You need to find the closest certified starting strength instructor and get in
Yep.
front of them and have an intro lesson.
Yep.
At the Strength Co, we call it Intro to Barbells. It's about 90 minutes. We take you through the squat, the overhead press, and the deadlift. And from there, you're going to start what's called novice linear progression. You can YouTube it, you can
A little
Google
weight
it.
each time,
We're going
get
to add a
stronger.
little bit of weight. Yep, a little bit of weight on your lifts every time so that you can progress and get stronger. You're going to continue to do your jiu-jitsu 3 days a week, ideally after you lift on the same day, or you can alternate days if needed, okay? You're going to need to adjust sleep and caloric intake as the stress you're adding to your body
And that's
goes
why
up.
you got to have a coach for this,
Right.
Because you're going to have it. So you
Yeah.
need the coach in jiu-jitsu. You need someone monitoring your recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
All right.
It's
Well,
pretty basic, but bottom line is you need a coach. If you're in this demographic, you want to have more fun, you want to submit more people, you
wanna
want to
be
smash
better,
guys,
yeah.
you want to be better,
Smash.
you got to get big and strong.
That's good.
Okay.
All right. Hip escape.
Hip escape.